So we have Tim Lewis. He's the customer success consultant at Dairy One, and so he's works a lot with working directly with farmers. And so we're gonna hear about using technology in farm conservation planning and implementation from him today. So thank you for your time and thanks for coming, Tim.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. I will tell you that Aaron picked the title, so I tried to make a presentation to match the title. No, we're in this together, but this is what I'm going to talk about today. Technology and farm conservation plan and implementation. Dairy One does a lot of things, so I'm going to try to, it's a very high overview. So if something sticks out to you, just raise your hand. It's meant to be very casual. The importance of keeping all of the data in one place. Talking about manure, that's a big thing of what we do. Sorry, it stinks, but that's just how we roll. Crop genetics and how it impacts the feed. And we're going to go through in individual levels here on seed, crop protection, crop nutrition, and planter settings. And we're going to talk about some software that's kind of top secret, but we'll give you a touch of a glimpse, and it's on me, not my counterpart. So moving on, again, customer success consultant was not a title I chose, but I'm trying to live up to it. Dairy One has an ag management division. In that ag management division is all of our milk testing groups out on farms, our SWCS team, the agronomy service team that's out doing the work in the fields, and our integrated farming solutions team with feeding software, herd management software, cameras, and internet. So that's why that's a fancy title to do all of those things. So we go to looking at something new technology, and trying to keep data all in one place and streamlined and efficient. We try to choose partners that have three main objectives: simple, drives, smart decisions, and we want to streamline important key performance indicators. We like to discover, configure, and launch. So we need to make sure it's farm specific. We want to configure that unique approach so that we share in that management strategy and everyone agrees. And as you all know, every farm is different. And we want to be there to support the farms that we do, ongoing training and support. This is a diagram that Dairy One likes to use. In the presentation today, the bigger picture, I try to tie all of these pieces together. So if you've got your rotten tomatoes, have them handy. But when we head into this principles of converting data into decisions, I like how we summarize this into 5 key pieces: personalized, scientific, automated, flexible, safe, or multi-generational is how I like to look at that. And as you can imagine, the internal challenge between the scientists and the marketing people, right? So that's fun to find that balance with everybody, but that's why we get on farm and we make all this an individual, personalized approach. Part of the software that's up and coming, I'm a big picture guy. It's worth 1,000 words. It's less I have to say. So as you get towards the end, we want it to be convenient. Has to be speed, right? We all short on time, accurate, and secure. So we're looking for identifiers to see how you're doing with your particular operation. Some of the projects we worked on in the past, we were down at the Ruminant Center with Cornell. We called the project 3120. It was a lofty goal. Lots of people chuckle a little bit, but there was 10 industry partners that went together and tried to find, how do we get high yielding environments, and does it impact good quality milk or our higher yielding milk? So we wanted to focus, it's not just a lot of money, right? It was very expensive to do this, but we're looking for net profit, right? That intersection of the big goals and reality, where does that cross? I won't get too far in the details because I could talk all day on this kind of the part of the farming, but we'll make everybody else bored. But it was several hundred acres, and there was a lot of entries. It's a ton of work and a ton of data, trying to replicate everything, right? So it's consistent and proven. Looking at different populations of corn hybrids, the downforce a corn planter it takes to make the right environment for that seed, how do you fertilize or feed that young seed? Where do you plant it at for depth? What it takes to close all that up like you were never there. And biologicals is the new buzzword that is really hard to get pinned down. Some of the highlights thus far, we are still processing data for 2 years to get the science behind what we've learned. That was a great conversation with Greg Johnson. For those of you that know him, ask him to spend $100 an acre more on fertilizer, but we're going to use less. So what we found from a feed position, we were able to influence the quality of that plant by near 10,000 pounds of milk per acre. And that's a really big number, and that's hard to believe. So we're trying to repeat and replicate that on what did we, what happened? How can we change that plant to make a better quality feed? The seed program was a lot of fun. Again, that was about 11,000 pounds of milk per acre between the top performing hybrid and the low. And this was all done in an 8-acre piece. So there was minimal discrepancy on soil types and other environmental challenges. But to try to get that down to a number that people would better understand, the same hybrid at 36,000 population performed better at 28,000, right? It's a flexier hybrid. Let it do what it was designed to do instead of overpopulating it. When you backed off your seed savings and the feed quality increase was $400 an acre. So these are big numbers that we really want to have some consistent performance to take out to the market. From that project, it led us into a national program. So DFA was pretty excited by what we were trying to accomplish. Legend Seed is a large independent seed company that we are going to have a national offering. And they are really focusing on feed quality, as you can see to the right of this chart. That is the sole purpose on how they pick their genetics. So we are a part of a group across 7 states, 30 different locations last year, trying to bring this kind of data forward to help our farms make better decisions. Here's some of the pictures so far. You can tell top left, we did a really good job of taking a very nice 80-acre field and making a mess of it. So, but that was the planter map. That's what it took to put a lot of these different entries in. That's just one of many fields. Directly below that, that's a drone picture from our field day. And I enjoy watching to see how the crop responded to these different management changes. That was really neat to see. Directly over would be the roots. I get excited about that. You can see we've impacted that plant. I really want to drive that root structure, right? That's what's leaving us there for future iterations in the conservation piece for this particular group. We were able to drive stalk size differences, leaf area differences, trying to make a better channel or a highway to get nutrients up to that year. And that was a yield map. And some will tell you that a yield map is really a root map, right? That tells you how good you did raising a good plant. So it's fun to get all the different perspectives coming together with this broad of approach. We tried to turn some of this data into actionables. So we were able to watch everything that the planter did. Like I said, there was $140,000 worth of technology on a 12-row planter. So we had a lot of visual into places we've not had before. Anywhere between 1 and 5 ton impact. So the different colored dots represent, we tried the first year with 3 different soil types or 3 different fields. The one up in the hills that nobody knows you really farm because it's that bad. The one down along the lane everybody sees that gets all the extra manure. And then one we tried to go into some triticale to capture all the different things that the farm did. And that was really hard to create data, right? Because there's so many variables in that we could learn from. But here's what we've learned so far, how each of those environment change and the potential return for that decision-making process. We're then able to take that the next year and scale it to a larger operation. This is a 24-row planter. Half of it had this kind of technology on it, half of it did not, the standard. So we're able to dive in and see the differences when you let the planter run on automation. The goal that we were taught is 35% moisture in the furrows. We've got a smart sensor that can be in there, and that's 3 days from this time is the algorithm that predicts that. That's a pretty bold statement, but you can set the planner to chase that moisture level through the field. So you get to see some of the metrics here of how that performed. I'm a bottom line guy, go all the way to the right side of the screen. That particular field get paid. But we want to see some of the details it took to do that. So chasing 35% moisture inside of this field, you can see the variance the planner was able to go up and down. And we learned in the Northeast, so some of this is Midwest technology. You really don't want to go that shallow. It gets pretty cold and the seed does not like that. So even though we were chasing moisture and the agronomics behind driving that, there's much more that plays into the end result. And they're starting to see a pattern here, if we had time to get real deep, how one decision affects the other. So we're able to give this to the grower and say, every time you change the pressure to push down on that row unit, no tilling, minimum till, right? All these different environments that changes the pressure, then you put on the back of the planter to close all that up like you were never there. So we're trying to find an optimum description to help him utilize the technology that he has. Moving forward, this is a new product to the Northeast. The first one is going on a planter here in about a month. So I call these bottom right picture ink cartridges. The system is called SIMPAS. It just sets right on the planter. There's 26 different things that can go in these boxes. And each box has an RFID tag on it. So you can tell exactly what inventory you have. You can prescriptively write whatever you want to do of those 26 things. And then you can variable rate that throughout the field. So top left picture, this particular farm used 2 kinds of insecticide and some zinc. So you don't have to blanket apply anymore. And we prescriptively write that and it can tell you how much you need to order. And you just put it in the certain pockets where the pressure is. Right, so we're being a little more environmental and friendly. Across the screen is just another field, similar design. Bottom left is the application map. I wanted to note the blue dots on the screen. We can write in check strips where nothing is done. So we can compare from a return on investment standpoint, if we didn't do anything in all those different environments, where are we getting our best return on investment? How are we impacting, the overall project? Up and coming, simple terms, it's called See and Spray. They are now putting cameras on sprayers, and each nozzle only comes on when it sees a weed. Their projections now is 70 to 90% reduction in contact herbicide. Growing up in the Midwest, that is a really big claim. We covered a lot of ground with sprayers. So we're hoping to put out a demo this year to see how that works in this particular environment. I think this boom here is a 90-foot boom. It's aluminum. They build the boom for you. It comes plumbed, dual lines, so you can have one boom that's always putting on the residual, a constant rate, if you will. And the other boom, in the next slide, you'll see has all the cameras. And this one picture here, bottom left, is just how certain nozzles are coming on when it sees the particular weeds. And you can select green on brown, so it knows what it's looking for, or green on green. So if it knows it's in a no-till situation, it has to look for a different kind of system. Fascinating technology. We'll see how well it works. I think this picture, as you see at top of the screen, there's about $250,000. So it's going to have a big return on investment. And it has the individual nozzles on it, right? So I can control the pressure individually to keep our droplet size to a minimum. And it has dual tanks, so we can run multiple products with the 2 different boom lines. This is a picture of a machine that ran in this area last year. The camera on top of that I circled is called Augmenta. Its beta was to be able to look down over the crop and read that crop mass, NDVI prescriptions, and variable rate the nitrogen on the fly. That would make some people's lives a lot easier if that was the case versus aerial photos and writing prescriptions. So it went well. We're going to scale that testing this year. This is their slide to be able to look out 140 foot wide. See the crop health. It will send pictures. If there's a crop health problem, it can geo-reference that particular photo. So not only is it videoing, right? It will snapshot problem areas and send to your scout to know where to go double check on that. So that is a lot of automation, and that's a lot of wires and nitrogen that probably may not play well long-term together. So that's the Augmenta piece. We were told we were going to get one of these this year. It's called a rain system. It is fully automated, ran by your iPad, but they can't keep up with demand. They've not expanded out of the Midwest or the South yet to come to the Northeast. I don't know why they're not excited to bring a 3-wheel machine to hillsides and rocks and mud. So we're waiting to see. So they have a shredder pump on this so we can run manure through it. It's running in dairies in Florida as we speak, and Ohio. But the idea is you put an RTK antenna on your planter. It records everywhere the planter goes, so it knows where the rows are. Your consultant will come out with their ATV and go around the field and obstacles in the field to make a geo fence so it doesn't run away from you. And then most of these designs are on wells. Here we're talking about frac tanks or pumping water to it, but it'll lay that reel as it goes out. So we could put manure on going out, and we can water it in coming back. So that's something we're looking at. They're telling us that they can cut the manure cost by 1/3. That's a big claim again, but with the yield increases, they're talking about $500 return on an acre investments. Very true. We'll find out. All that reel full of manure. We're just watching it, but this is some of the technology pieces to see if it will help what we're up to. Every field has a story. We're trying to find that middle ground of the management piece to tie all these together and find out where the right balance of the missing link is. Since we are Dairy One, we got to get a little bit of dairy inside of this, right? I wouldn't be earning that big fancy title. But Joe Lawrence shared this in his presentation. Penn State did some work, and if we can set out and have these kinds of plans, a planting plan with our genetics and a harvest plan of when to harvest it, weather fitting, we can impact our feed costs by 9%.
Excuse me, sorry about that.
That's also another really big number. So we're trying to document all this stuff as we go and try to find some of this thing on a large farm scale. And to back up some of his data, Joe is finding here that shrink, again, I'm a picture guy, he's showing in this middle chart, if we don't harvest at the right moisture, we don't get it packed in there correctly, it could cost you, so we'll never catch zero, right? That's just not attainable. For every 100 cows, it could take you 11 acres more of corn to produce the same kind of feed that you need. That really stuck out to me, and I asked Joe for some of his slides to be able to share that and tie it into the whole system that we're working on, the importance of a plan and trying to hit that as best as we can. This is a screenshot of some of our feeding software trying to help manage inventories. Consultants, it's a cloud-based system. You can use it on a tablet or on your phone. Any consultant can jump in and see where we're at to help with logistics for shipping and managing for the grower. This is what the feeder sees off of his tablet or his phone. We have the ability to adjust for dry matter variances, as that is always changing, right? So there's multiple rations on a farm, the one the nutritionist makes, the one the feed guy mixes, and the one the cow eats. So we're trying to help narrow up those variances. Similar on our herd management software, kind of the end user of a lot of our efforts. We can now put that on a phone, stays on your arm. The manager can hand out chores to do in his verbiage, right? So nothing's diluted as it goes about the day, and we can date and time stamp when a chore is completed. Easy to get to reporting to check up on how we did. So that is a high flyover of everything that we work on and some of the technology and how we try to implement those pieces.
Okay.
Questions? Oh, yeah, first, thank you. Questions for Tim?
I got a question. It doesn't seem like you're really that involved in your hybrid development for your corn, but I was wondering if you know if a factor of that is for them to expand their harvest window for the hybrid development for peak nutrient value. And I'm curious, how much of a harvest window do you have?
Well, Mother Nature determines that, would be my reflex. We could go up to 120-day hybrids is what the window they're looking at. You know, others in the room could testify to that. That seems fairly long. 80-day to 120 days, we can spread that out. And we're just getting started in what does that mean to feed quality? Because every year is different. So we're starting to build multi-year data with that approach. So we're in the early stages.
Other questions, Scott?
You mentioned large farms. I'm wondering how much of your experience and knowledge and your customer base are with smaller farms? How much of this stuff can trickle down, lessons learned that maybe smaller dairies can try to adopt, or is it all kind of like equipment based and that have these?
Just 1 second. So yeah, Scott's question was just basically how can this technology transfer down to smaller farms, or is that possible?
Different pieces of what we just discussed today would be transferable. The feeding piece, you know, a couple hundred cows, I'm not sure, small has a different meaning to several people.
As a company, we work with farms as big as 8 to, pigs, chickens, lambs.
Correct.
Even on a crop aid, I mean, we're using the 2020 seed sense that I buy on our farm, so I know exactly what, we do a lot of precision management as well, so they can go on, take the same stuff and go into a cash application as well.
So I'd say that irregardless of the size of the farm, every discussion starts with return on investment. And that means something different to everyone. Cash flow is different, so you got to start what you can obtain and build on that. Is the answer I would give. It's just different for everybody.
I had a question on the, that multi-location study, that really large scale study you were talking about. In terms of kind of how important was environmental variability, maybe within a season or between seasons? Because it was a 2-year study, right, across these different locations. Like, did you see better performance of certain hybrids and certain treatment combinations in particular environments compared to others?
So to summarize the question, genetics to environment, is that is something we are trying to chase. And yes, every environment is different, and we have that here. Just south of here, there's a farm that divides their operation up into 4 quadrants because the environment's that different. So that's on every farm. You have environmental challenges. That's why we try to pick 4 to 6 different kinds of genetics to test on each individual farm to have a diverse portfolio to be prepared for risk.
But did you see performance differences in those varieties that you were testing?
Yes. A big difference. One thing I would like to point out, I think we have just a little bit of time.
Yeah.
When picking seed corn, there are certain genetics that do not like to have cold, wet feet. It may be a stellar hybrid, but it needs to be the last one you plant. If it's the first one you plant, it may fall on its face and you lose a chance to get good feed because we didn't position it correctly. That's something we're trying to change, some of these conversations to be prepared for that discussion, because even we can have the best laid plan, right? But when dad goes and gets corn out of the barn, so the planter doesn't stop. That's where the prescriptions are nice to help try to implement some of that streamlined approach.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.